Hey everybody, welcome back to another edition of Finding Freedom right here on the Lions of Liberty podcast. And man, I got another great show lined up for you guys today. Before we get to it, just want to remind everyone, if you've been listening to the show for a while, or even if this is your first or second time listening and you like what you hear, please, we would really appreciate it if you would consider going to iTunes or whatever app you're listening to this on. Give it a 5-star review, give it a 5-star rating, and leave us a nice little review. Would be appreciated. And hit that subscribe button. I mean, with what Mark on his Monday show, Brian on his Wednesday show with Electric Liberty Land, and myself on Thursdays with Finding Freedom, what we try to deliver to you is the best value you can get in a variety show type podcast. And we're bringing you, great interviews on Monday with leaders in philosophy and the liberty movement and entrepreneurship. And Wednesday, Brian McWilliams is giving one of the most unique takes on culture and current events and putting his comedic spin on things. Just a great show. And myself on Thursday, of course, what I've tried to do recently with my change is expand and really look at life as a whole, not just the criminal justice system, but through business ownership and through different things that we can do in our lives to apply the principles of liberty and overcome obstacles and find freedom in our own life. That's my goal with this show. So please support us. If you haven't yet, really consider even supporting us and becoming a patron. We have some great giveaways. Great stuff that you get access to, bonus content, stuff like that, all kinds of merchandise, depending on the level that you join. Access at our Nittany level and above, you get to actually produce a show and tell us what you want us to talk about. So check that out, patreon.com/Lions of Liberty. And I really hope you guys enjoy today's show. I got a really awesome guest for you today.
We are born free, and we will die free. The time in between, though, that's complicated. In that time, governments, institutions, and our egos will limit our ability to find true freedom in this life. These are real stories of real people overcoming the odds, persevering in justice, and unlocking their potential. Welcome to Finding Freedom. Here's your host, John Odermatt.
All right, so we are live with Etienne de la Boetie. I think I'm saying that correctly. We just talked about that pre-show. Hopefully I nailed it. So we're live here for our patrons, obviously. If you're listening to the replay, if you're hearing the audio in our podcast, think about joining our pride, becoming a supporter so you can watch and engage with these interviews live in our Facebook group or on our private YouTube stream. Etienne is he's an organized crime researcher, educator, professional speaker, and he's the author. This is why he's here today, mainly to address this book, which is a very unique in layout, in the way it's presented, from any book I've ever seen before. So the book is called Government: The Biggest Scam in History Exposed. And we're going to talk about that, and we'll see where it takes us. Welcome to the show.
Good to be with you, John.
Great to have you here. I have your book right here. And as you can see, people are watching the video. It's different from a book, even just in the way it looks. You've kind of gone off the index card of allowable books and just the shape of the book. You don't see many books shaped like this. And obviously when you start turning the pages, you start to see why, because it's very visual format. A lot of meme type information, visual persuasion. So want to talk about that probably a good amount, get into the meat of the book and why you wrote it. But before we do that, let's talk about the name that you're writing under. What's your inspiration there?
So it is a pen name. In the original Etienne de la Boetie, I call myself Etienne de la Boetie squared to distinguish myself from the original and to make sure you can find me in a search engine by putting the numeral 2 next to Boetie. But he was a French political philosopher. He wrote in the 16th century, and he was really one of the first that cataloged the little tricks and techniques that rulers used, not just to get obedience, but to get adoration and fealty and God save the Queen and, all the little, tricks they would do to get the population to go along with getting robbed. And so you mentioned that I'm an organized crime researcher. And so my thesis in the book is that government was never really intended to protect life, liberty, and property, but government you can think of government as a technique of what I call intergenerational organized crime to rob and control populations. And it is always illegitimate because it's impossible to delegate rights that you don't have yourself to a representative or to a government. You can't be bound by a social contract you didn't sign. And if the rest of the Lions and Liberty and myself vote to have John give us all of his money, well, that would be immoral and wrong. And it doesn't matter if there was 6 of us or, 500 of us or 275 million of us. There's no additional magical person that makes something that was inherently immoral now moral. And so government has been the biggest scam in history. It has been the absolute positive biggest scam in history. And they get away with it because they've been controlling the media and academia. And so right now, the subtitle of the book is How Intergenerational Organized Crime Runs the Government and the Media. And the next version, which I'm working on right now, the 5th edition, will be called I'm changing up the subtitle, How Intergenerational Organized Crime Controls the Government, the Media, and Academia. And that really has been the name of the game. We're going to control the information that the population receives, whether it is from the mandatory government school where we teach you that government is legitimate and that you have to do you got to do whatever government says, and you got to give them 50% of your income and overt taxes, covert taxes, and inflation. And then they have bought off and hierarchically control academia through the mandatory government schools, the state universities, accreditation, textbook amalgamation. And they control the media. And and what I do in the book is designed for visual learners. Most people are visual learners. They come to insight, much quicker if you show them an image or a visualization than they would if you just try to explain a concept. And so when I say, intergenerational organized crime is controlling the media, we do a lot with media ownership charts and media organization charts so that you can see that it's just, around on the old media side, about 6 companies running hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of subsidiaries to give everybody the illusion there's all these information sources in society. And then on the new media side, there's about 2 to 3 dozen, new media internet companies, Google, YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, Reddit, Wikipedia, Discuss, that does comments on thousands and thousands of websites, Amazon, Netflix, etc. And I like to call these DARPA front companies, where what I believe happened is, certain companies, like by the time they released the internet to the population, they'd already war gamed it. They'd figured out which companies they needed to control information broadly, not just in the United States, but in the world. And so we're going to overfund these companies. We're going to give them patent protection. We're going to, put allow them to buy up their competition. We're going to put their competition out of business, whatever it is, to ensure that we're able to control, perception widely by controlling the information the population receives. And all of those companies that I just mentioned, that's not hypothetical that they're censoring and controlling information. Every single one of those companies that I just mentioned has been caught censoring information, deplatforming the alternative media, demonetizing content creators, shadow.
This video right here on YouTube, demonetized. We no longer can monetize on YouTube. So it's very real.
Right. It's 100% real. And so that's the name of the game. It's control of perception. Can we get the population to believe in their hearts that it's legitimate, that government is legitimate, that you owe the government money, And then the other thing I break down, the final thing I break down in the book, or one of the many things that I break down in the book, is that government has given the population the idea of government as a pseudo religion. So they're using all the little tools and techniques of an unethically manipulative religion or cult. Okay, we're going to put you into the church school where the priest, the teacher, is going to teach you the common prayer of the Pledge of Allegiance and have you sing the hymns of the Star Spangled Banner. And in eighth grade, we're going to take you to Mecca, Washington, D.C., where we're going to take you into the cathedral of the Capitol that looks like the Vatican. We're going to, show you the Pope, the president. We're going to take you down to the temples of, Jefferson and Lincoln and show you the deities. And it's going to be very hushed and reverent. And then, everything in the book is backed up. We've got these little flash drives, and it's a credit card size flash drive, and either 8 or 16 gigabits of information. And we back it up, and we've got some videos in there showing how the government has been with the media product placing the American flag into movies and television shows at the moment of high positive, emotion, using a propaganda technique known as anchoring, where they'll build the audience up to a moment of high positive emotion, and then boom, they're going to show you the flag. And then if you don't realize that they're doing that, then, most Americans, they've got this warm and fuzzy to the flag and the idea of being American. And they don't realize that they've been immersed in this kind of soup of propaganda and anchoring and, unethically manipulative techniques. Yeah. And so until, you realize how the game works, then you're always going to be a sucker for the game. And so what we're trying to do in the book is we're trying to show people how the magician does the trick so you can't get fooled by the trick.
With the American flag thing, I'm getting an echo now. I don't know. Do you have earbuds in? Or?
I do. I'm wearing earbuds and a mic.
Why am I hearing an echo back? It just went away. Okay. Anyway, I don't know what that was. With the American flag. So even for sporting events. So they do the national anthem. Mm-hmm. And I've never really thought about this before, but recently we've gone to a couple of football games, and finally things are sort of returning to a little bit of, at least around sporting events, you have a little bit of normalcy, people turning out. But you look around and when else would you sing a national anthem? Of course, it's going to be before a game, but I think the reason for that placement is it's, you have two teams, two fan bases divided. They're coming together before the game. You're not going to sing it at halftime when the teams might be at each other's throat. And it's that point of expectation when everyone is at their highest emotion right before kickoff or right before the first pitch. So I definitely agree. There's a lot of manipulation there, of course. And you have your fighter jets flying over the stadium to show the power of the state, tying in with that national anthem, tying in with the start of the game and the emotions. It's all very, very persuasive for sure. So this is I agree with you. It is a scam, and it's been a very effective scam. But I want to turn back. We'll come back to the book, but I'm curious because obviously you're pouring a lot of your time, a lot of your energy. You're traveling around the country. You're going to Liberty events. You're spreading the word of liberty. You have this whole strategy, which we can get into later, about how you can use this book to convert people to liberty and even take that next step and maybe start to form a more of a libertarian society on a local level. How did you find these ideas? What got you interested in these ideas? What got you, passionate enough about these ideas to write this book?
Oh, come on. It's always going to be Ron Paul. So,
of course.
So Ron Paul came to talk to my college, and I want to say 1988. I was a freshman, and he had
old school Ron Paul. You're from
old school Ron Paul. Yeah, absolutely. And so I'm at the time I wasn't that political, and I didn't even want to be there. I was supposed to be jet skiing with friends, and then I had to have these prepared questions, and I was like ticked, and I was going to throw hardballs at him just because I was supposed to be jet skiing with friends that day, and so what I ended up doing is I'm like going, oh my God, I never heard a politician make so much sense before, and I literally walked out of the room going, oh, I guess I must be a libertarian. And so then through college, it was okay. But, I kind of discovered the ideas of liberty. I worked at one of the big four think tanks, the libertarian one, and I went through I got to audit their intern program where they literally took the interns through the, kind of the greatest hits of, the books and the philosophy and the writers of liberty and economics, and I just developed a really deep love and passion for liberty, and not just that, but I developed an understanding of the free market, the mechanisms that I'm a voluntarist. We don't need government. I mean, so that's the other part of my book. It's kind of like the good news message of like, we do not need government. Every single thing the government does, from roads to, armed protective services, which they call the police, to dispute resolution, which they call the courts, to air traffic control, all of that can be done better, quicker, cheaper, faster by the free market. And if you just think of it that way, the government is this, monopoly provider of services. Well, we just need to get rid of it, because it has been hijacked by organized crime. When I say intergenerational organized crime, I take it all the way back to monarchy. And so I kind of look at monarchy as the original organized crime. You're going to give us your money or we're going to hurt you. And so that they had, because they were the moneyed interests at the time, they had the best cultural anthropologists and futurists, and they came up with these like little techniques and things. And when the original Etienne de la Boetie was writing about these in the 16th century, he was writing about techniques that were in some cases already 1,000+ years old. And so there's like a playbook to slaving up a society. And we break down that playbook in the first part of the book, 20+ techniques. And we show what that technique looked like, not just in the United States, but in Nazi Germany, in the Soviet Union, and in East Germany, so that when you lay them right next to each other visually, people can go, oh my God, that's a playbook. The United States is using the exact same techniques as Nazi Germany and the Soviet Union. And you really don't realize it until you realize, through pattern repetition and visualization, making what was invisible visible, that it is a playbook, that all of these media companies are connected together. They're all in on it. And if you're stealing trillions of dollars, I used to work on Wall Street, the couple $100 billion a year that you spend to control the media, well, that might as well be free. And on Wall Street, that's known as mice nuts. It is like if you're stealing trillions, then the couple $100 billion you spend to control the media, that's the marketing budget. That's
it's a rounding error. Yeah.
It's a rounding error, and most people, they can't get their mind around the size of the amount of money that is being stolen out of Washington, D.C. I mean, we're handing trillions of dollars to private banks, private companies through the TARP and the TALF and the bailout back in 2008. Now we're doing it through
private quotes.
Right. But we're handing, now we're doing the same thing. We think the COVID was the manufactured, engineered reason for this current round of bailouts and stimulus, where the people get these chicken feed $1,600 STEMI checks, but the banks and these cartel companies, they're getting trillions with a T. Trillions with a T. We are being robbed. This is a bank robbery. And then they get away with it, like I said, because they're controlling top-down hierarchically the media and academia, and media and academia are going along with it, saying it's legitimate because they're paid to, because they paid them to. And so now what we're at, really right now is we're at this point where let's say roughly half the population has figured out that the television and the media is lying to them. and half the population hasn't. And so now you can almost tell who's who because they're not wearing the mask.
Mm-hmm. So I'm curious to get your opinion. You've done so much research into this. How much do you think in the past, decade, but especially accelerated with COVID, do you think that this model, this scam has sort of morphed, maybe to add another leg to it, another tentacle in these private cartels? If you look at companies like Pfizer and what they're doing with the vaccines, and you talked about the banks and Facebook, even these large Google, these large tech companies having using their censorship, and they're sort of arms of the state masquerading as private entities. When did that shift really start to happen? Is that something that you get to in the book?
Well, kind of. And so, I mean, what you've got is, I would argue it's not necessarily an arm of the state. I would argue that the state is an arm of intergenerational organized crime. So we're the family business. Going back centuries, is we rob societies using government, gubernare mente, gubernare to govern or control, mente the mind control. And that mind control starts with controlling the information that the population receives so that they believe it's legitimate that they're getting robbed. And then they have built up around that, around the government model, they have built up cartel companies. They're operating together as a cartel. So as an example, when they, on the media side, when they censored the alternative media in I think September of 2018, when Facebook kicked off 290 people off the platform, 500 plus groups, when they kicked off the Free Thought Project, it wasn't just Facebook kicking them off. It was, they got a strike on their YouTube channel and they got kicked off of Twitter the same day. And so this is a cartel of companies, okay, that are operating together as a cartel to censor information on the dark internet. And that's one example on the media side. But you've got the military industrial complex, you've got big pharma, you've got big ag. And these are companies that are using government to transfer trillions of dollars. In the case of the military industrial complex, we're buying, crazily overpriced weapon systems to fight manufactured enemies in wars based on lies and manufactured intelligence. In big ag, you've got, ethanol subsidies for Cargill and AMD and kind of big agriculture. In big pharma, you've got mandatory aluminum and mercury laced vaccines, now graphene oxide laced vaccines. So we're going, every time that you can lobby and bribe the CDC to get a vaccine added to the childhood immunization schedule, that's $1 billion. That's $1 billion. And what do you think it costs to buy off the CDC? And people are just naive to not understand what is going on here with this. This is a wholesale robbery. For the banks, they're allowed to engage in something called fractional reserve banking. And so the scam of fractional reserve banking is when you go to a bank and you go to get a mortgage or you go to get a car loan, they're not loaning you depositor money. They just tickle the ivories and boom, credit your account with digital dollars, even though that's inflationary and even though that's stealing the value out of everybody else's money. They just create the money out of thin air. And then you spend the rest of your life paying off a mortgage that somebody got to create out of thin air. And so, not only is that unfair, I mean, I have a business. I don't get to create money out of thin air. Do you get to create money out of thin air? But it's inflationary. It's inflationary. And so now, you're seeing the prices, skyrocket as these trillions of dollars that they just created out of thin air for the stimulus and the bailout. So as these trillions of dollars begin to compete in the market for a a scant amount of goods and services, you begin to see prices get bid up by this, tsunami of money. And so they're stealing the value out of the money in the population's pocket the same way as if they stuck their hand in your pocket and stole it. They're just doing it in this kind of sneaky, way that most people don't understand, but we explain in the book, and we make it easy for your friends and your family and your neighbors to understand it. The book. I understand that you've got a very sophisticated audience. I didn't write the book for your audience. I know they already know all of this stuff. I wrote it for their friends, their family, and their colleagues. And so the book is really designed. How do you take somebody from 0 to 60 and get them to understand the way the system works in the shortest amount of time in a book that once they pick it up, you're hooked. You're like, what is going on in this book? You cannot quit flipping through the pages, and every page you go to, they're going to learn something, and they're going to get hooked. And so we're waking people up, left and right. I got an email today from somebody that said they threw away their American flag. Like, they realize that that's the chumping. The chumping is the chumping is we've given the population this artificially indoctrinated holy symbol that the media is weaving into the propaganda, and that we gave to them as children before they were old enough to understand the illogic and immorality of government and everything like that. And then once you realize how the population has been chumped, you're like, forget that. I'm done. I can't believe they got me. And they got me too. I'm not they had me for decades until somebody explained to me the way the big game worked. And then once you understand how the big game works, you don't get fooled again. And so it is a revolution that's only going in one direction, because once you realize that it's just a scam and that they're literally running game on you, they're using religious symbolism in their propaganda, they're just completely chumping the population. Nobody goes back to being a chump. And once you realize that there's a man behind the curtain in the media, and they can sell 9/11 on every channel. They can sell the COVID on every channel like soap flakes. Well, then, not to trust the media. And then you go and, begin searching for the developing voices of the alternative media. And we have some of those in the book. So we're trying to point people in the right direction to get them off the media. But once you realize, it's that CNN and Fox News are in on it together, and it's, and they're both promoting statism. They're both using the symbolism of the Vatican. I mean, the Capitol building or the flag or the whatever. They're just waving it around to lead the religiously faithful around by the nose. You're like, I'm out, I'm out. So it's a revolution that's only going one direction. I think that's why they're locking us down, is because I think that this is the knowledge of how the game works, the illegitimacy of government. And even if you're not, 100% sold on the illegitimacy of government, I know there's a lot of minarchists within the libertarian community. Everybody knows that Washington, D.C. is crooked and criminal and is bought and paid for. And so the criminality of government is now, in the information age, is now kind of being laid out for all to see, around the world. And so I think that might be why they're moving forward with these lockdowns and this COVID scam, is people are waking up very, very rapidly to the scam of government.
I 100% agree with you.
All right, guys, I want to take a quick break in the show today to tell you about a great new sponsor that we have, I Trust Capital. If you're someone who maybe has an old 401k that you moved into an IRA somewhere, when you left a job, you just have the money sitting there, what do you do with it? Try to invest in stocks, whatever other bull crap out there. What if you could invest that money in crypto? Invest it in physical gold and silver? Well, you can do that with I Trust Capital. But with I Trust Capital, you have the tax benefits of an IRA while trading in crypto assets. And on top of that, like I said, you can also have access to buying physical gold and silver into your account. It's amazing. If you sign up using promo code LIONS at I Trust Capital, you'll get the first month free. Now, iTrust Capital is safe and secure. They are backed by Coinbase Custody and Curve to secure clients' digital assets. And they have 320 million of insurance to make sure your funds are safe and secure. On top of that, they are trusted. They have 1,300 reviews on Trustpilot, and they are 100% transparent in their fees, which, I can't really say that about all other IRA providers. Now, whether you're holding your assets long-term or you want to buy and sell with the market, iTrust Capital's IRA gives your account, or provides the account, the lowest transaction fees for buying Bitcoin or other digital currencies. As an iTrust client, you'll be able to log into your account, make trades 24/7, trades execute in real time, and settle in seconds. They offer more cryptocurrencies than any other crypto IRA provider out there, and they're adding more all the time. Go to itrustcapital.com, use promo code LIONS for your first month free.
You were speaking to the listeners of our audience here at Lions of Liberty. A lot of the stuff in the book, they already know, but the way it's presented, I think, is not only valuable for you to give to another person to read it, but also to learn how to present information. Even if you're not carrying the book with you. We're talking about the education system, the schooling system, and how you're comparing in the book. You're comparing Nazi Germany, the Soviet Union, the United States, and East Germany to each other, showing how the schooling model all have themes that are the same. The children are taught the same way. This what is it? The Prussian model, right? So I think it's good to learn that comparison is a strong way to influence people, especially when you're comparing to something that someone has a very negative viewpoint of, like being a Nazi. Being like, well, they use the same way to indoctrinate their children and use the same media tactics to propagandize their citizens as are being used here. And here's some examples of it.
Yeah, and I'm sharing my screen now just to give the audience an example, and I'll just take them quickly
Let
through
me put that up. See, it's not showing. There we go.
So this is the first part of the book, and the first part is, as I mentioned, it's the playbook. It's 20 plus techniques used by intergenerational organized crime to create the culture of slavery or tax slavery and how it manifested in each time and place. And in the black box is the explanation of the technique. And so then it's what it looked like in each of those regimes, so that you can see it's a playbook. And so just to kind of take you through the playbook real quick, we're going to give the population a flag, and we're going to build religiosity around that with the media. We're going to give them a quote unquote social contract that nobody signed, but everybody is expected to be a party of. We're going to put them in mandatory government schools running the Prussian model of education, whose authors were very, very open about their plan to indoctrinate and raise people in the ideology of the state, mostly so they could get them to conscript and fight in wars after Prussia began losing on the battlefield of Europe. They all have youth programs. So the government school system produces the religious, kind of the religious zealot, the basic, like willing to, tithe a portion of his income to the state. But then there's kind of another, layer of conditioning to produce what are known as order followers. And order followers are willing to kind of, shave their head, put on the uniform, single form conformity, and use violence, either, murdering people abroad in wars of occupation based on lies and manufactured intelligence, or domestically, enforce the commandments of the artificially indoctrinated religion on their neighbors and use violence on peaceful people to, either for, to engineer society, victimless crimes, around drugs or prostitution or whatever it is, or to raise revenue on their neighbors with accidentless speeding tickets or whatever the scam of the day is. And so that youth program is kind of the first stop where now we're going to have flag worship. Now we're going to have pride of uniform. We're going to start teaching them obedience to hierarchical command and control over their conscience and basic morality. And ultimately, we're going to produce these order followers. Then the youth program gets kind of creepy. Now we're going to teach the kids how to kill. So as they get older, it's the Explorer program and the Boy Scouts. It's JROTC. It's Young Marines. We're going to put them into the uniform, shave their heads, segment them away from the rest of society onto, military bases where we're going to begin teaching them, how to kill, how to use guns. And it is, once you understand how it is super duper creepy. A lot of people don't know that this is going on because they don't do it in affluent communities. They tend to do it in poor communities where the kids don't have a lot of options. All of these regimes have forced pledges and oaths on the kids. We mentioned the military and police are artificially glorified and celebrated. That flag worship that we were talking about earlier, that's artificial. The government is paying for that. And anytime you see a hypertext link in the book, you can click through and see the research or the scholarship behind the claim. But a couple of years ago, it was $53 million a year. And that artificially, the fact that they've got to pay for it, that's one of the ways that that it's artificial and that it's like selling soap flakes. They all use political rallies. The participants frequently engage in politician worship of the artificially created political leader savior, not understanding that organized crime is leveraging knowledge of human psychology to exploit most, but not all humans' biological desire for a leader or a father figure. And they all use propaganda. Here's another hypertext link that I recommend: CIA, DOD, direct involvement in 800 plus major movies, 1,000 plus television shows. This is why the government is always the hero. This is why, whether it's the CIA agent saving the world, Tom Cruise, whether it's, FBI, DEA, ATF, President of the United States saving the planet from invading aliens in a fighter jet, the government is always the hero.
Still a great movie, though. Even with the propaganda, still a great movie.
Yeah, I agree. I agree. Like if you want to be entertained. By the way, we talked about gubernare mente being, gubernare to govern or control, mente the mind. The root word of government is, to govern the mind. The etymology of entertainment is entertainmente. So enter means to entertain, means to hold or possess, and mente is the mind. So entertainment means to enter your mind and hold it and possess it long enough to show you a commercial or to distract you away from information that may free you. And so you have to be very, very, careful about the entertainmente that you participate in. But they all use manufactured news, overt or surreptitious control of publishers, editors, and reporters. They all use manufactured terrorism. They all use false flag events, manufactured intelligence and lies to start war. They all use political assassination. They all have political temples dedicated to the state and its deities. They all use monopoly government fiat money to steal value secretly from the population. They all spy on the citizenry, which is how you know they're good people. They all use torturous policy, which is how you know they're good people. They all run secret prisons, for-profit prisons, concentration camps, and black sites, which is how you know they're good people. And the conscription, manufactured enemies, paid political violence, that is the kind of the first part of the book. That's the playbook, the basics of the playbook. And you can, that is just designed so that you can see that that the United States is running the exact same playbook as the Nazis, the Soviets, and the East Germans. And then we get into the middle of the book and we've got these we've got these called one pagers. And here's another example that, many people haven't realized because they come by one at a time, that the media is using religious symbolism in their propaganda until you stack up 3 dozen examples. And then the brain is like, oh my God, I never realized I never realized they were doing that, because they came by one at a time. But because human beings are really, really good pattern recognition machines, once you show them the pattern, they're like, that's a pattern. They're running game on me. Mm-hmm. That's artificial. They're doing that on purpose. And then you would be surprised at how many people get really, really upset, when they realize, hey, they're doing that on purpose. They're running game on me. And so then they start thinking about it. I break down the religionist statism. I break down the shady history of the Constitution. I break down the shady history of the Pledge of Allegiance. I break down public government school indoctrination. I break down, the private Federal Reserve and the theft of fractional reserve banking. I break down the propaganda matrix. And this is what I was talking about earlier. Now, this is just 1/4 of a media ownership chart. And if you click on it, you can pop it up and you can see, the entire chart. But in essence, what you've got is you've got these 6 companies running hundreds and hundreds of subsidiaries to give everybody the illusion that there's all these different information sources in society. And this is News Corp. News Corp doesn't just own Fox News. They own 100.
That's powerful right there, that visual. You can see that right in front of your face.
Right in front of your face. And they own 175 newspapers, and they own magazines, and they own internet properties, and they own book publishing companies, and they own television programming, and they own satellite networks, and they own television distribution. And right next to them is Disney. I couldn't get the whole chart on there, but if you click through, you can see kind of like the rest of the chart. But this is how they're able to control the information society, receives. And every single channel, Disney is ABC. And so every single channel, it's government is legitimate, government is legitimate, government is legitimate. And most people, because they went to the mandatory government school or they went to a private school that had to be accredited, they were force-fed the idea that government is legitimate before they're old enough to really evaluate the logic and the morality of that claim. And so then they've just never thought about it again, because it was slipped to them when they were young and impressionable. And so they've always, they've never really questioned it because it was given to them so early. And once you give something to somebody so early, it almost becomes, like an instinct, and they just never thought about it.
Quick question on that, just to hold on that for a minute there, because I'm going to get your opinion on this. It's something that I've been thinking about a lot recently. You were talking about at the beginning how Ron Paul kind of brought you to liberty back in 1988. My story similar. Mine was a little bit later in 2000. I guess 7 when he ran for president as a Republican the first time, but running for president the second time. And I always told people that, Ron Paul, he shook me awake from my neoconservative coma. I was a, big Republican, George W. Bush supporter, all that stuff. But really in hindsight, and my colleague here at Lions of Liberty kind of brought this to my attention in his own journey, that it wasn't really that, you learned these new ideas and then sort of like totally adopted the ideas. They were kind of already in us, because it's the truth. And I don't think everyone's this way, but talk about the remnant. I think there's people out there that that they have liberty. Maybe it's the way they're raised. Maybe some of it's just biological, or I don't know. Maybe some of it's unexplainable. But when you hear someone speaking those ideas, that a lot of them you've been thinking already, it kind of just, it's natural. So it wasn't really that Ron Paul woke me up. It was just Ron Paul validated the things I'd been thinking, and I finally heard someone else articulate it.
I agree with that. So I think there was definitely some of that, like I said, I described him as the only politician that I'd ever heard that made any sense.
Mm-hmm.
And so like none of it had made sense to me, that like government, seemed kind of like a scam and seemed seedy and I was familiar at that time, I think, with Mark Twain's quote that Congress is the only criminal, like I forgot exactly wording, but a criminal class, and so I'd already known that DC was shady and criminal, and so Ron Paul gave me the alternative of liberty. And then once you realize you don't need government, that everything that government could be done by the free market or mutual aid societies or nonprofits or real charities. Like once you realize that we don't need government, that really is, one of the keys that unlocks the mental chains that, that have bound the population to government. The other thing is that, that government is, menacing the population with invented enemies. And so like, I don't think that that we're really at war with China and Russia. I think it's the United States. It's not, I think it's the people of the United States versus the government of the United States, the people of Russia versus the government of Russia, the people of China versus the government of China. And the governments are playing the people against each other, against the governments, to try and menace them so that they clamor for the security of the state to protect them from these imaginary enemies. I think they're all in it on the top. I think every single one of these governments at the top of the food chain knows that they're robbing the population, that it's a game, that these are ancient techniques, that they're running game on them. And so it really is the population of the planet waking up to the fact that government has been used to rob and control them. And I think that like once one country gets free of that, and we're able to prove that you don't need government, that idea is going to spread like wildfire to the other governments. And you're going to see all these governments fall and collapse. I think it's, I think we're right there. I think we're so close. I think we're just so close to understanding how the scam is portrayed. My goal is, I hope I'm the one that I'm the straw that breaks the camel's back, and widely exposes the illegitimacy and the criminality of government in a way that most people can understand, in a book that you can leave at somebody's door. And that's the other thing we're doing, is how do you win the whole thing? And so in New Hampshire, we're trying to get something started called the Pre-State Project, where to get around the algorithmic censorship of the internet, to get around the monopolization of the media, the only way to do it is kind of a brute force attack. Let's go door to door. Let's drop 100,000 books, 100,000 flash drives, 100,000 documentaries. You can do that for about $1 million. And for $1 million, you could drop 100,000 of these packages and drive people to 36 in-person town hall meetings in 12 communities in New Hampshire. And for reasons I break down in the book, I think New Hampshire is the easiest state to achieve this, to widely expose the illegitimacy of government because of the work of the Free State Project, because they've only got 1.3 million people, because it's a small state that's easy to canvass and hold these town hall meetings in. But we want to get around this algorithmic censorship and this monopolization of the media. We're just going to go door to door. We're just going to just drop it off, explain it to people, drive them to town hall meetings, answer all their questions, arm them up with more packages for their friends and their family and their neighbors. And I think if we can widely expose it in one state and either engineer a political secession from the federal government, or engineer enough civil disobedience where there's enough people that understand how the scam works that they just don't go along with it, and that the order followers lose their power. And what I mean by that is, when the police come out right now, the majority of the population think it's legitimate. Imagine if the police show up and people are laughing at them because they understand the game that has been how these cops have been chumped, literally chumped. They made you shave your head. They put you in a costume. They got you to use violence on peaceful people. You're a chump, man. And they get laughed at. That's how we win. We win when when enough people in the state understand how the game works and how the scam works, that they just laugh and don't go along with it. And that's to me, that's how we're going to win.
Yeah, I 100% agree. And I especially like that you talk about sort of a two-pronged approach. And just talking about the police for a minute, I think some police in places like, these big blue cities in Chicago, New York City, where you're seeing these vaccine mandates, and a lot of the police are not going along with it, and they're losing their jobs, as well as healthcare workers and whatnot are in the same boat, starting to wake up to that. But this is something that I think a lot of libertarians with the COVID regime and things that have come about here, with people losing their jobs due to vaccine mandates and mask mandates, businesses being shut down, entrepreneurs losing their lifetime of creating a business, starting to understand that we got to figure out a way to counteract this, a way to get outside of this system. And I agree with you. Is it definitely a two-pronged approach that's needed. We need that community, that local community, so we can rely on each other, so we can help each other out. If, we do get deplatformed, or we do lose our ability to do banking, then you start to bring in, your cryptocurrency and your decentralized finance. We're able to work around some of those things and create a society outside of this, government sanctioned fiat currency that we have. So it's crazy the time we're in right now. But I agree with you. I think we're closer than people realize, and I think we are getting closer and closer, partially because of the government's actions, which are nudging people even closer, just sort of just as a blowback, as Ron Paul would say, to their actions.
Yeah, my understanding is that homeschooling has tripled in the past year. And so we're taking more and more kids out of these government indoctrination centers. And I agree that community is 100% of it. We need a redoubt. We need a libertarian redoubt where we can be safe from government, where the order followers have no authority. None of us is safe as long as there are shave-headed cult members willing to use violence on peaceful people to enforce the commandments of this artificially indoctrinated pseudo religion of the state. And none of us is safe until we've got a place that we can go on the planet where order followers have no power, because they get laughed at and they're recognized as the chumps that they are. And so that is to me, that is job number one. If you want freedom in California, let's free New Hampshire. If you want freedom in the UK, let's free New Hampshire. You want freedom in Australia, let's free New Hampshire first. We can win everywhere, but we've got to win somewhere first. We've got to prove that liberty works, that the free market and capital creation and spontaneous order and the invisible hand can produce, way more wealth than can be produced under this, government system of taxation, confiscatory taxation, and monopoly privileges, and economic inefficiency, and ridiculous regulatory burden, and all everything that comes with government. I think that once one place on the planet breaks free and shows that you can get by without government, it's all over. So let's free one place, and let's make that a laboratory of liberty, and let's use that example for other, U.S. states and countries to begin to devolve themselves away from their federal governments down to state governments, then local governments, then no government. But there's got to be a template. There's got to be somebody that goes first. I think we make the case in Government, the Biggest Scam in History Exposed, why it could be New Hampshire. And so once we win in one place, I think you're going to see it spread, like wildfire around the world.
Yeah, we were talking pre-show, and I said, New Hampshire's a little cold, but maybe I could make a deal. We could come to a compromise. It could be New Hampshire in the summer, Florida in the winter, or something like that, where we can we can make it work out. But I 100% agree with you that community is so important. And when people do get deplatformed, lose their job, you're going to need neighbors like-minded neighbors to rely on, to come together in community, to help you out and to help each other out. So I think it's something people should look into. I don't know. I mean, you're promoting New Hampshire, and I'm all for people promoting New Hampshire. All for people promoting different kinds of solutions as well. I know there's people doing similar things in other states. A lot of people have moved to Florida, but I have a lot of faith in the Liberty community to use. We're using decentralization here, a decentralized model, to sort of figure out the best way forward. So before I let you go, if you could tell everyone where they can find your book, how they can order it, and all the formats there are, and anything else that you're working on, or anything else that you want to plug.
Well, so the book is Government, the Biggest Scam in History Exposed, and that's at government-scam.com. My startup public policy organization is called the Art of Liberty Foundation, and that's artofliberty.org. And you can actually download, the executive summary of our plan to free New Hampshire at artofliberty.org. And then the final thing that I would just wanted to let your listeners know about is that this book is going viral. And so in the past 6 months, we've sold 3,000 plus copies to 20 plus countries. And not only are we selling, like a ton of books, but people are buying them in bulk. We have what we call friends bundles for 5 to 10 copies. And we get reports almost every single week of people putting them in, donating to libraries, putting them in little mini libraries in kind of neighborhoods, making them coffee table books in Airbnbs, putting them into laundromats, putting them, into cafes. And so out of the 3,000 books, we've had over 115 people buy over 900 copies just, in bulk. And so it's true viral growth. And so if you're interested in helping us accelerate that, take a look at, artofliberty.org. But you can download the book, a preview copy of the book for free at government-scam.com. And you can also see all of the content in our Liberator. You can actually download the entire, the content of our Liberator flash drive. And you can get that at government-scam.com/liberator. And this is what is being censored off the internet. This is what is being de-indexed by the search engines. Now you can put it in your wallet, and you can, your friend's house while y'all are sitting there talking, he can be downloading the entire thing, and then you can go on to the next thing. There is no way to stop the information revolution. They're not going to be able to get rid of it. We are going to win this thing. Government-scam.com or artofliberty.org.
Well, that is awesome. Thank you for coming on the show, Etienne de la Boetie squared. And I will say that I think this would be a great Christmas gift if you celebrate Christmas, or if you have some birthdays coming up, to gift to some friends, either liberty-minded or otherwise, to share with others. So thank you so much for coming on the show.
Thanks, John. Thanks for having me.